Homestuck is clunky. It's clunky on purpose. It's full of artificially difficult—
Hey, JD, you should check out the YouTube channel.
5,000 views? It's not even a gameplay loop yet. I'm gonna have to work faster then. Ahem. Homestuck is clunky. It's clunky on purpose. It's full of artificially difficult mechanics that the characters have to struggle through. The most exemplary mechanic like this is the first mechanic introduced, shown as early as page 7, the inventory, or Sylladex. Each character has a different inventory type called a fetch modus, which specifies how they're able to put items into and fetch items from their Sylladex. Each modus shown has its own unique quirks, balanced between inventory utility, combat utility, and social standing. These quirks are based on arbitrary principles like data structures and board game rules, and each one by itself is easy enough to implement. I've seen plenty of custom modi in action in Homestuck universe. I've even developed my own personal modus for it. But there's a catch. There's a device in Homestuck called the modus control deck that's only ever shown off once. It allows a player to arbitrarily combine fetch modi together to make a hybrid of each component's mechanics. Given the diversity of fetch modi, it would be difficult to make a static system for combining modi, and I haven't seen a fan game implement one yet. This sounds like the perfect system for me to tackle in my own fan game. I'm JD Draconovics from Dragon and Fox Collective, and I'm making a video game based on Homestuck. If you were paying attention to the background footage of Devlog 0, you might have noticed that there was in fact a clip of Homestuck gameplay featuring a modus control deck. I wrote that specific feature, but it was never released due to it being part of a Homestuck add-on that never got off the ground. It was the last thing I wrote for Homestuck before transitioning game engines to Unity, so it only made sense that it would be one of the first features I added to SBEPIS. But of course, this requires writing my own implementation of simple fetch modi to begin with, so let's start there. A Sylladex is a collection of captcha-log cards. To use their inventory, a player stores items into and fetches items from these cards. The rules that dictate how they can store and fetch are determined by a fetch modus cartridge. Although, in the current version of SBEPIS, both the Sylladex and fetch modi are represented by decks of cards. The modus that's easiest to understand is the first one shown in Homestuck. The pink modus is based on a stack. That is, you can put something on the stack, and it becomes the only item you can take off and use. This is called first in, last out behavior. Pushing an item onto the stack involves pushing each item already in the stack down one card, and then filling the top card with a new item. It seems impractical to literally move all these items between cards, so I offer a better solution. Taking the bottom card, filling it with an item, and simply moving it to the top. Popping an item off the stack does the reverse. It empties the card and moves it to the bottom. Now we have a simple, weird inventory system. The second modus, the orange queue, is a complement to the stack. You can add things to the end of the queue, but you can only use the item at the front of the queue. This is first in, first out. For reasons I'll explain in a minute, in Homestuck, the first card is the end of the queue and the last card is the front. This time, both storing and fetching use the same rule. Take the last card, fill it or empty it, and move it to the front, same as storing with the stack modus. This is where the modus control deck comes in. In Homestuck, John slots both his stack and queue modi into this control deck, and it combines their functionality into one modus. The queue stack, represented by cards that are half pink, half orange. The queue stack puts new items on top, as both modi do, but the player is allowed to fetch from both sides, which is much more functional than either the queue or the stack separately. Unfortunately, this information alone isn't enough to completely solve our system. All we can really tell from this is that you're allowed to fetch using both modi, but it doesn't specify which one you can use to store, so this next section is going to be rather arbitrary. First, it would be easiest to prioritize the fetch mechanics of the first modus before attempting to fetch from the second modus. You could just go in order until something works. This fixes conflicts with other modi that might be able to fetch the same card. Then, since I don't want the first modus to have too much power, storing would be relegated to the last modus, which in this case would be the stack. And that's the core component of the system. Fetching goes left to right, and storing uses the right. This is the thing I haven't seen anyone else do in 15 years. Actually, there is one more difficulty that we can see from here. As an example of a complex UI, the next modus I wanted to implement was the dark blue cyclone modus from Homestuck universe. With this, the cards are laid out in a circle that spins, and only the top card can be stored into and fetched from, so you have to be patient and wait for a card to come around if you want to use it. Now we have multiple UIs to deal with. We don't see any modi with different UI combined together like this, so I made the arbitrary decision that since the right modus is used for storing, the left one is used for UI. Now we can make a stack clone, which is laid out in a line, but has a card you can use cycling through it, or a psi queue, which is laid out in a circle, with one card always being accessible and moving to the side every time you store something. The last mechanic of the modus control deck is shown when John slots an array modus, which just lets you access any card, in front of the queue. This creates an array of queue stacks, 4 separate queue stacks that he can access at any time. This was really a pain in the backside, what with conflicting UIs and not, but the premise is simple. Each horizontal layer in the control deck contains the next layer inside of it. A queue in front of a stack would make a queue of stacks. A cyclone in front of a cyclone would make a cyclone of cyclones. Essentially, where a front layer would have a card, a whole back layer is inserted in its place. This creates an architecture where instead of working with cards directly, you work with abstract things called storables. There's a storable slot, which has one card, and a storable group, which holds multiple storables according to the modus or control deck layer, called a rule set. The player always has one group, configured based on their modus. When they store or fetch an item, it propagates down the groups until it hits a slot and then interacts with that card. There are a few other details, like hook functions that always run, but that's the main system behind fetch modi in SBEPIS. You can play with the fetch modus right now by getting the game from the DNFC Discord linked in the description, or from the GitHub, because this entire thing is free and open source. Subscribe to DNFC and join the Discord to get notified of updates and devlogs. Because this game is free, you can buy us a hot chocolate with Ko-fi or subscribe to our Patreon to support us. Thanks to our Alchemeter tier supporter Concours and our Hot Chalky tier supporter Ivy Sprout. Also, thanks to all you viewers, I was not expecting this much support. From the first 2 devlogs, we already have 3 new devs besides myself, and I am very much so going to enjoy working with them. Big things are coming. I'm JD Dragonovics, thank you for watching.